Black men, we live in interesting times. We're living at a time where black men are finally beginning to push back against some of the narratives that have been told about us. We are beginning to speak out. We're beginning to make demands about what we want and don't want in partnerships, what we want and what we don't want in the way we're represented. And it's a beautiful thing. It's been a long time coming. And there's been some bumps and bruises along the way, but I feel like it's finally here. If you follow me on social media, you know that I speak a lot about black men, and I push back against a lot of the narratives that black men are labeled with, from academia and from activist spaces. I've gotten a lot of really good responses to that, but it's been limited to social media. But also some of those narratives have been limited to social media as well. They were starting to bleed out into the wider world. But unfortunately, because they're so based in whack theory and in junk science, they weren't really gaining traction. They were starting to, but once they entered the real world, people started pushing back. You're starting to see that happen in internet spaces and social media spaces as well. And I think it's a beautiful thing. If you talk to black academics, black male academics, they will tell you that there's been this move over the past decade to sort of move any kind of conversation or any kind of subject that pertains specifically to black men off of college campuses. And there's been sort of an unofficial censoring of black male voices on campuses. They'll tell you that privately, but they won't tell you that directly. And very few of them will go public with that because they know that it will affect their academic careers. You can find the same thing in cable news spaces. A lot of black men who work in cable news and a lot of black women who work in cable news don't rock with a lot of these agendas that are being pushed on the black men, a lot of the demonization of black men. But because their livelihood is tied to their jobs and their jobs are tied to going along with these agendas, they won't say anything. You're starting to see a little bit more pushback. But by and large, in mainstream spaces in academia and in cable news and in journalism, and especially in blogging that gets funded, there's been a lot of demonization of black men. Almost to the point where if you say anything positive about black men, people who have the power and the authority to shut down what you have to say or censor your words or censor your articles will automatically jump on that and get you kicked out of there. It's happened. So what that's done is create sort of this vacuum where you have masses of black men looking for people who want to speak to their concerns, and you also have masses of black men who want to advance in creative spaces and advance in academic spaces that don't have anywhere to go. So they've been pushed out of these spaces. So what they're doing is they're all accumulating in YouTube, and they're accumulating on the social media spaces that allow them to speak. Out of that mass of people who've been silenced, they're starting to speak among themselves. And they're also raising up people who are speaking for them. And it was bound to happen. If you silence people, or if you tell them that what they have to say isn't worthy, they're either going to internalize that, unfortunately, or they're going to completely reject it and start talking amongst themselves. So what you're having now is people who are talking amongst themselves, and the world is listening. It can only benefit the black collective if we have black women, black men, everybody speaking for themselves, and then finally coming together and having conversations among themselves. Nothing advances in an echo chamber. So that's what we're dealing with. I welcome it. Shout out to everybody who's doing this. Shout out to everybody who's supporting that. Shout out to everybody who's listening. This is only the beginning. We're just getting started. What's good, everybody? If you like what I'm doing with the channel, be sure to subscribe, and also be sure to hit the support buttons down there so I don't have to go out here and do the electric slide on any murals.